go on to Jolanda. She'll be speaking about the human resource intricacies and shortages, as well as the vulnerabilities within the supply chain. She has been with J&J doing the Ebola vaccine and all of that. So she's going to share with us our expertise and our experience on how to solve that.
Yeah, to start with, I think I can merely talk about some technical aspects around the supply chain, of course. As some of you already mentioned, you have also other aspects like limitations for importations and all things like that. And of course, we're thinking about the two supply chains. So it's the materials that we require for the manufacturing to come to the facilities in Africa, but also our final products to be distributed in the continent of Africa. Some challenges which we had to overcome for the distribution of the product in Africa is again, and I think some people also mentioned that, is that we have to deal most of the times with a cold chain situation. And I also learned that in some places also dry ice may not be available. What we did back in the days is that we have built our own mini warehouses, so to speak, where we had storage capabilities for storage conditions for -20, which is already less challenging, of course, than having to store material at -80 or even indeed liquid nitrogen and such. So I think it is important, next to you're thinking about all the manufacturing facilities, so strengthening on that end, of course, that's a very fair point, that there's also availabilities for smaller or bigger warehousing facilities available in key locations. And a very practical aspect which I encountered as well is also that sometimes the roads were not too smooth for distribution. So we had some really shaken vaccines, to be say it like that. So there is an influence also from the shaking and steering along the transportation, which we have to think of when we are going to transport our final drugs. And for the raw material end, of course, we have to think of the starting materials such as cell lines, virus lines, things like that, but also all other raw materials which we may require. And of course, I think some of you mentioned to source it indeed, preferably within the continent. But I can also imagine that to a certain extent it may not be possible to source for pharmaceutical grade raw materials, and then you have to import from other countries throughout the world. And of course, in the Biotech Training Facility, we have experience with a lot of these kinds of supplier companies, and they may be also willing to think together with you on how to get those raw materials also to the African continent to be able there for starting the manufacturing. And cell line establishment, I think that also ties into the story that Ronald mentioned about technology transfer. There's lots of technology available in the world. So as he mentioned, yes, you can do a chunk of R&D, but there's so much already available which could be transferred. And part of that would also be the cell lines and the viruses, whatever you may need to establish the manufacturing processes.